Hello, fellow students. This time we're going to find out what is the correct answer to puzzle number three, and this is the starting point. So, what can we say about this position? Black has a nice control over the A file, but unfortunately, this rook isn't really going to be able to penetrate anywhere. Black has a knight on E6, that can't really control the F4 square or the D4 square. This knight on d7 doesn't seem like it's easy to improve this. You could probably maneuver it to knight b6 to a4, but in that case it's not really going to create much damage towards white's position. In fact, after knight a4, maybe the b2 bishop can easily retreat back to c1. So, in this situation, if black is trying to look for a good way to improve, he should ask himself which piece of his isn't doing much in this position. Sure, this knight on d7 is not doing much, the knight on e6, maybe it's protecting the g5 square and the c5 square. The rook on a7 and queen a8 is focused on controlling the a file, and when it comes to the bishops, the bishop on f8 and the bishop on c6 is exerting pressure towards the e4 pawn. Therefore, the only piece that's really not so well placed is the bishop on f8. And here, there are two possible ways for black to improve bishop on f8. Which one is the more active one? Okay, so if somehow we can manage to improve this bishop and include this into the game, get him going, I think black will have a much better rate of creating some progress in the position. Okay, so the first way to improve the position for black is, well, improving the bishop on f8 is to play king h7 followed by the move bishop h6. Okay, this seems like a good way to improve. But unfortunately, I think the bishop isn't going to do a lot of damage towards white's position, even though it's controlling the c1 square. Not much. It's not going to contribute much from black's perspective. Therefore, the other way, the better way, and the more aggressive way of improving the position is by playing the move bishop e7. Now, what's the purpose of the move bishop e7? Bishop e7, the first idea is, of course, maybe preventing the white knight on f3 from jumping to g5. And the second reason why bishop e7 is a good move is because black is going to maneuver the bishop into a very aggressive way where it's going to be pointing towards the king side. Can you spot where that bishop on e7 is heading? Yes, it's heading towards b6. Okay, so look at this bishop. Bishop came from f8 where it was completely shut down by the b4 pawn, and it isn't really doing much doing much on this diagonal as well. So I think it's fair to say that by placing the bishop to b6, black will exert more pressure and the bishop will have more purpose on b6. Okay, so black played bishop e7 from the game Raiste versus Yamelin. White continued with knight 1 d2. Black continued with bishop d8, continuing or following his plan. White played king g1, and obviously look at the difference and the pressure that black is putting towards white's position for bishop e6. Queen is lacking in space, and white's pieces remains very cramped. His pieces, it's not easy to see on how exactly white could improve his position from here. Okay, so after queen e2, black figured that in this situation he could just pretty much take his time because, well, white is not threatening anything, or it's just like what we mentioned before. It's not there's no easy way for him to improve and create an impact towards black's position. Okay, so black just took his time and sealed every single weaknesses that he has in the position by playing king g7, making sure that he's guarded this dark squared weakness around the king. White played knight h4, and okay, so next step. What's the next step of improving here? Next step is, well, black probably thought about the same uh, thinking method of looking for the piece that's not doing much in the position, and he decided that since these two pieces here, over here on a8 and a7, aren't really doing much in the position, he decided that, well, it's probably time for me to change my plans. If it's not working out, you gotta find a new way to improve the position, a new plan, right? So if forever this queen is gonna stay on a8 and the rook on a7 and this bishop on b2 and b1 aren't going to move anywhere, then there is no purpose of controlling the a file. Therefore, we're switching, or the queen is switching her attention towards the king side. Black plays queen d8, involving the queen, and if she's planning on placing the queen into a much more active square, possibly g5. Or another idea is maybe by playing queen d8, black is planning on controlling the d file as well. And here, after queen d8, white played knight g2. White is trying to improve his position by remaneuvering the knight to e3 and eventually hoping that he could control the d5 square. Okay, so he was also looking for a good way to improve his position. Unfortunately, he just has a lot of bad pieces, especially these two bishops, completely sealed in by all his pawns. Therefore, it's not easy for him at all. But anyways, okay, since black was aware of what white is trying to do, he played knight g5, putting pressure towards the h3 pawn. And if white is careless after h4, obviously knight h3 check is the threat, putting a lot of damages towards white's position. So after king h2, defending the h3 pawn, black prevented white from just executing his plans by playing the move knight f3. By playing knight f3, black has prevented white from being able to improve his position, which was the main intention of his maneuvers. So after knight f6, black is just putting a lot of pressure towards the e4 pawn, and white just continued with knight f3. He decided that maybe, okay, it's probably a good thing if I give up the e4 pawn, but in return I will get this. And at the same time, if my opponent captures the e4 pawn, this bad bishop will serve some purpose to white's position. So after knight f3, how should black continue? Should black shy away from the exchanges and just take on f3, or should black take on e4? Okay, so the right answer is knight f takes e4. Because if black just decided to trade down like that, remember the fundamentals or the rule, when you have the cramped position, you should start trading. Okay, so alright, knight takes e4 is trading, but if black just simply takes an f3, it doesn't really show black's advantage. It's not really going to emphasize black's advantage in the position, because by taking on f3 and preventing or avoiding taking on e4, this capture will not show black's c6 bishop's potential. Well, if you take on e4, even though it improves white's position and it's trading down, at least this bishop, which will create major headaches for white in the future, will come to life. And as what you can see, white has major problems on the light squares around this king. So I believe that this is a good decision by the black pieces. So after knight f takes e4, white simply continued with bishop takes e4, black continued with knight takes e4, white continued with knight takes e5, and since the bishop on c6 is threatened, black decided to move the bishop to a8, not allowing the white knight to be traded for his strong light squared bishop. And the idea is maybe black will have some ideas of improving the queen's position and just completely dominating the light squares. So after bishop a8, white played f3, black played rook e7. White just decided to create some or perform some sort of trade-off by taking on g6, knowing that he will regain the piece back again after he captures back on e4. And here, as what you guys could see, all black's pieces are just very active, especially those two bishops pointing towards white's kingside. And black continued by taking on e1. Knight takes e1, and how to make use of your bishops to the maximum potential? Well, obviously the move is going to be h4, just completely opening all the possible diagonals that black could attack or penetrate. So after h4, white played bishop c1, and the finishing touch after queen d5, knight g2, h takes g3 check, and white's position was just completely lost. Well, that was a good example of sometimes when the position is closed and you have one useless piece, it just shows that if you involve that piece in the position, it will increase your success rate a little bit higher than what it could possibly be. Well, thanks for tuning in, and this is the solution for puzzle number 3. Hope you got the answer on that one. If you haven't, then this is something that you can add into your tournament games, something that you can think about. And well, goodbye.